Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and today I wanted to take a look at a game that just came out that I've had my eye on what feels like forever now, and that is Firefall. When I first heard about this game a couple of years ago, it sounded impressive. Like, what the developers were describing and the ideas that they had in store for the game were amazing. First of all, this is a MMO first-person or third-person shooter, depending on your playstyle, free-to-play game. And the concept that they were describing was that this was going to be really focused on player versus player combat. So it was going to have all of the classic MMO type of gameplay, where you're going to have different weapons, you were going to have different upgrades that you were going to be able to progress through, different levels, different abilities, class-based system, and it was going to be all centered around PvP combat, where you would have to work with your different teammates, you would have to work with the different classes, and it sounded incredible. It sounded like Team Fortress 2, but set in an MMO setting, and so I was all over that. They also described the PvE as being extraordinarily dynamic. Different factions would be trying to hold on to different zones. If you took a zone, it would open up new quests. The factions or the mobs would try to come on in, take it back from you, and it would be this give and take between the world where it really did feel like you are in a constant battle with the environment around you. It sounded amazing. Now that the game has finally launched, though, over the last couple of years, the developers have been slowly chipping away at these concepts. Granted, they were ambitious ideas. It was going to be difficult to implement them, but they've slowly chipped away at them, where almost none of them are in the game right now. No longer is it focused on player versus player combat. Like, it's no longer going to be the esports that I was all hoping it was going to be. Like, there is a open world endgame PvP section, but from what I heard and what I read about it, I'm not all that impressed by it. And while there are a couple of dynamic events that happen scattered around the map as you're trying to level up, it's no different from something that you would see in like Guild Wars 2, Rift, or really any MMO system out there right now. Like, almost every single MMO has one of these dynamic events, and I would actually say that in Firefall, they're less dynamic than something that you would see in Guild Wars 2. And so the real draw with this game, and the way that it distinguishes itself from other MMOs, is that it is a third-person or a first-person shooter. There are not a lot of MMOs that come to mind that fit this criteria. Like, it is a niche market. Like, the only one that comes to mind is PlanetSide 2, and that's entirely focused on player versus player. And so if you're looking for a PvE-oriented game, you love to kill mobs, but you're looking for an MMO that requires a little bit more skill, or you just want to shoot at things, then Firefall may be right up your alley. One of the things that I loved about this game, though, is that the different classes, or they're referred to as battle frames, are really unique, and they provide a different playstyle. So I was mainly sticking with the Accord Assault. I had a lot of movement, but also a lot of firepower, but I also had the option to play as a medic. I could play as an engineer who had little robots that would shoot at things. I could play as a recon and snipe at the enemy. Like, every single battle frame, every single class was unique, and so if you want to mix things up a bit and you want to try out something new, you can just switch your battle frame and try out a different playstyle. The downside of it, though, is that as you are playing as that certain class, things get a little repetitive. So, like I said, I was playing as the Assault, and you get your primary weapon, which is like a plasma cannon. You get your 4 different abilities, and while I think that there are a little bit more abilities that you start to unlock later on, but essentially what you have at like level 8 or something like that is the same abilities that you're going to carry on all the way until max level. A little bit of variety, but essentially what you get at the low levels is what you're going to get at endgame. This also extends to your primary weapon. Like, as the Assault, I had my plasma cannon, and at level 1, it looked the same as my level 12 plasma cannon. It did more damage at level 12. I was still upgrading the gun, but it didn't really look any differently. It had the same sound, it had the same explosion, and so essentially, if you pick a class, you need to make sure that you like that playstyle and you like that role, because going from 1 to, I think max level is 40, you're going to be having the same type of combat, you're going to have the same type of role all the way through. There isn't really a whole lot of variety. As for the leveling system and progressing through the game, there are 3 different ways that you can accomplish or get a lot of experience. The first way is your standard types of quests. There's going to be a billboard that you can talk to. You can pick and choose between, like, I think 4 or 5 different quests depending on which one you want to try or which one sounds interesting. And what's great about them is that they are 100% voice acted. They do a great job of voice acting. All of them are convincing. Some of them are funny, some of them are better than others. challenges, but that was the main way that I was progressing or leveling up my character. There's also a couple of dynamic events that you may stumble across, very standard stuff, nothing too crazy, where you may have to defend an objective, you may have to go in and blow some things up in an enemy encampment. They're not going to change the way that the environment or the map progresses by any means. They're not really all that dynamic. They're basically just random events that happen every once in a while. And then the third way that you can level up is through their Thumper resource collection. So a Thumper is something that allows you to collect resources. So if you find a resource node on the ground, you can place this down and then it will start to go to town. It will slam into the ground repeatedly, a lot of rumbling will happen, and then the surrounding creatures will all start to swarm towards the Thumper and you have to defend it for like 3 minutes. Basically your standard defend your objective type of quest. Very standard. At the end of it, you get a bunch of experience, you get the resources that come from it, so that's also nice. But that is your 3 main ways of leveling up in the game. The downside of this though, and something that I quickly realized, is that if you are looking for the standard leveling system that you find in most MMOs, where you go to a hub, you pick up a bunch of quests, and you go out into the world and complete all of them that are next to each other, that is impossible in Firefall. Like, you go to the main hub, you pick up one quest, one mission only, and then you go out into the world and try to complete it. And what I realized is that while the environment looks gorgeous, I think that the continent and the way that they've gone about the aesthetic, like the art style, looks phenomenal. Like, this game looks beautiful, but it almost feels like they don't have enough content for the size of the map that they have. Like, for example, I picked up a mission, I traveled 600 meters to pick up a couple of carcasses off of the ground, or I killed a couple of creatures, and then it had me travel another 700 meters in the complete opposite direction, nowhere near any other objective, to go kill something else, and then I had to go back to the quest hub to complete it. In between those different objectives, there weren't anything in between them. Like, I would come across maybe 1 or 2 mobs, but that was it. There were hardly any dynamic events that I stumbled across. You know, yes, I could complete a Thumper mission, but the game just feels empty. And that may be because there isn't enough people playing right now. Maybe when more people jump into Firefall, there'll be more dynamic events and there'll be more people, you know, trying to do Thumper quests, and you can go in and jump in and join them. But right now, it just feels like they padded the content where they have this amazingly beautiful map, but there's nothing in it, and they just have you traveling everywhere to try to pad it out and extend the life of the game. One of the things that I have to praise the developers for, though, is that this is a 100% free-to-play game. If you don't want to spend any money and you want to have all of the content, this includes the cosmetics, this includes the different skins, you want to play as all the different classes. If you want to go down that route and you just want to spend millions of hours in Firefall, it is your jam, you love it, you can do that and not spend anything and get all of the content. You can spend your real-world money to speed up the process. That is one way to go about it, but you're not going to get an inherent advantage over everyone else. Like, you may be able to level a little bit faster. I guess that is a slight advantage, but you're not going to be able to buy like a bazooka that's going to allow you to murder everyone. Like, it's a great system. It's a cool economy where you're able to transfer the resources that you gather into credits, and then you can transfer those credits into the real-world money currency, and then you can buy the aesthetics, you can buy everything, basically everything in the game. It is awesome, and I would love if more free-to-play games went down this path. But overall, while this is definitely not the revolutionary game that I was hoping it was going to be, it doesn't have that competitive player versus player or crazy dynamic PvE gameplay. It's your normal MMO, and so if you like to play World of Warcraft or Guild Wars 2, but you've always wanted to shoot at your enemies instead of casting Fireball at them, then I recommend that you give this a try. I should mention that there is endgame content. There are different raids that you can partake in. I watched a video where a bunch of people banded together to take out this gigantic robotic scorpion. It was really cool, and also apparently really challenging. So that type of gameplay is in there as well. But if you were looking for a PvP-oriented MMO shooter, I would look elsewhere and really just play something like PlanetSide 2. There is an open world PvP map that does sound interesting. It has a couple of cool ideas, but it's also endgame content. I jumped around for a couple of minutes. I shot at a guard in there, and he was like rank 37 or level 37, and I immediately died. So you do need to get to the max rank to participate in player versus player, and since it's going to take tens upon tens of hours, at least for me, I just don't think it's worth the time investment for something that may just be mediocre. But that's just me. You might be a little bit different. But overall, hopefully this has all become very apparent that Firefall is your average MMO with first-person or third-person shooter mechanics. I did enjoy my playtime. I did play for around 7 to 10 hours, and during it, I did have a good time. But my biggest gripe was that I felt like I was running around more than I was actually in combat. Combat is fun at first, but it can get a little repetitive, and while the map is gorgeous, there just doesn't seem to be as much content as I was hoping for. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think about Firefall. Do you enjoy the combat? What class are you playing? Let me know down below. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one, and take it easy.